Hello, everyone. It's me, Darlene Corbett. Welcome to Get Unstuck Now, or at least begin to get unstuck now. How about that? I am so pleased you're here. If you want to see me on video, you can go to YouTube/C/ Get Unstuck Today. Sometimes I'm a little inconsistent. I try to be consistent, but, well, we're all works in progress, aren't we? Today, I'd like to talk about a few things. One is Pamela and Tommy Lee. Two, the Outlander. Three, and they lead into each other, by the way. Three, health is wealth. And four, just commenting on the people impacted by what's going on in the world. Let's start with Pam and Tommy Lee. Last time I told you I saw their series on Hulu. Fabulous series. Not for children, not for teenagers, but really, really well done. I often wondered during the series why, I didn't really wonder before because I didn't really think about it, but why Pamela Anderson felt a need to constantly be a centerfold in Playboy. Didn't think much about it because I never really did think much about it. But a friend of mine told me some information, which she looked it up, and I saw, as a therapist, I should have known. Before I continue, not all people who pose for magazines where you can make a lot of money, you understand that, have been afflicted the way Miss Anderson has. Some, but not all. What I learned, and I should have realized, is Pam Anderson was sexually abused numerous times, from 6 until 10 by a female babysitter. I can't even comment on that. From 12 years old, well, at 12 years old, by a 25-year-old, and at age 14, I believe by a boyfriend who raped her, and then there was gang rape. You can't make these things up. Sometimes the truth really is far worse than fiction when it comes to abuse. Now, I tell you this because sexual abuse, and I will reiterate this over and over, is the worst of all abuses. Do not get me wrong. The other abuses are not benign either at times. No, it's never benign, but there are gradations. Sexual abuse embodies physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. I witnessed it myself in terms of seeing people over the years. Long ago, when I was at DSS, Department of Social Services, which is now DCF, I mentioned this. That's when it came out of the woodwork. Doesn't mean it was just beginning. Believe me, it's been on through the centuries, but they learned about how it impacts people by studying the Vietnam vets, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I don't know anything about Miss Anderson's journey in terms of healing. Maybe she saw this as a way to heal. What happens often for women and men who have been sexually abused, they have lost control of their precious body. What do? Well, if they're going to be exploited, they're going to take charge of who they're going to share their body with, as understood. So sometimes they see it with prostitution or strippers or people that bear their bodies. Again, I want to be very clear. I do not suggest this is across the board. There's a lot of money to be made. You understand the lure of that. I'm not suggesting it's the best way to go either, but Pam Anderson really suffered in some form. We don't even know the impact on her psyche. But watching her on Hulu, watching Lily James, who did a superb job, you really almost couldn't tell the difference. She had a very lovely disposition, personality, demeanor. She also sounds like she's a lovely mother, as best as she could be, and apologized to her sons. She hopes she didn't make them suffer. And it sounds like she has a good relationship with them. Who knows? I don't know. But she seems very caring. And it sounds like she's connected to her boys. And that's a good thing. She also changed her stance. I don't know how much, but a few years ago, I saw her in the Wall Street Journal. She wrote an article with a rabbi talking about the need to have a sensual revolution, which I certainly agree, because I think sensuality is so much more alluring, so much more enticing. She thought that there was too much separation of love and sex. And well, I think that's true. I think there's this idea that, well, I'm not going to get into what I think, because I think there's a lot of people that have different opinions. I don't feel like having people yell at me, but I do believe after working with men and women for over 30 years, there are some things that have not changed in 5,000 years. And knowing this myself in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that's that. That's all I have to say about that piece of my, understanding. But I want to say this about Pam Anderson. She did what she needed to do, and it sounds like she's certainly continuing to do what she needs to do. And I wish her well. No one should endure this. I will say this also. There are far more male perpetrators. We know that. We absolutely know that. Men have more power. But not all females are the fairest sex. She was sexually abused by a female, as was Whitney Houston, as was the lovely actor from the 30s before my time, and certainly for many people that are listening to this, Dorothy Dandridge. I believe the Melissa Etheridge may have been, as well as Ellen DeGeneres. It is not benign when anyone abuses you. There are consequences, and people suffer, and the best revenge is success. And how do you define success for people? Is healing and living their life to the fullest. I tell you this because I know there are some boomers out there and Gen Xers that carry the secret of being abused. I know because I sit sometimes with people that share that with me. If you feel it interferes in your life, address it. Go talk to someone. It's your time. It's your privacy. It's a confidential matter. If you feel you only want to talk about a little bit, you let the therapist know that. Be careful who you choose to. There's a lot of wonderful therapists out there. But if you have someone that says you need to do this, you need to do that, you don't need to do anything. If you don't want to tell anybody anything about this, you don't tell people. If you don't want to go any further, don't. Therapists may probe. I sometimes do if someone says, well, I don't want to go there. I go, okay. Then if they start telling me these different kinds of behaviors that occur, I say, you think? And I go, I don't know. I don't believe it. Okay. And I leave it alone. It's not my life. It's not for me to decide. I can only guide someone. You need to be in charge of you. Your control was taken by someone. So if a therapist says you're resisting, bye-bye. You have the right to resist. You have the right to be in charge of you. I've had people come see me and they'll say, I want to learn if I've been abused. I said, why? How does it interfere? I'm very, very adamant about not going to open Pandora's box if it doesn't interfere. If it does, okay. But I take it slow and steady and we focus on safety. Sometimes it takes years to heal from this. It's a very, very, very complicated matter that involves complications with relationships. Again, I've said this before, sometimes the perpetrator is the greatest nurturer. You say, how can that be? It's complicated. I've seen it. I've talked about it in other podcasts. So all I'm saying, boomers, Gen Xers, if it's you or anyone you know, go talk to someone if it weighs on you. You don't have to tell another soul. Now that leads me into the Outlander. Yes, the show that has been talked about. It's now on Netflix. I started to read the book. I wasn't crazy, but don't go by me. Everyone else loves it. I have a friend that adored it. And I'm an avid reader, voracious. The storytelling was fabulous. I could not get past the Scottish, I don't want to say brogue, because that's the Irish brogue. I don't know, but there was some of the language. I don't know. I couldn't get past it. It doesn't matter. It's a fabulous book from what everyone says. But the Netflix series, oh my. Well, it's on Netflix. It was on Stars. Storytelling at its best. She's masterful, the author. Diane Galabaden. probably saying her name wrong, so I'll just say Diane or Diana. I'll just say Miss Diane, Ms. D. How about that? Because I can't say her last name. But it is just amazing. You've got intrigue and history, love, sex, all of the makings of a wonderful story. Time travel. There's violence. It's a little hard to watch sometimes. But I bring it up. It's actually a nice segue from what I talked about, because I'm not going to tell you where. I'm not going to tell you where I am in the series, but it's certainly not number 6 that just came on. But somewhere there is a rape, sexual abuse, rape, because you can, when there's misuse, it's hard to say, you think child sexual abuse, but I saw someone not long ago that had been sexually abused by their boss, and they were an adult, raped. They wanted to learn, and they did. It was very, very sad. That was one of the people that I said, why? But anyway, I'll leave that there. But this really displays it well, and I'll tell you why. And Miss Diane did a fine job of showing the impact of abuse, the PTSD that arises, the guilt if there's some pleasure involved, and there often can be, much to the chagrin of the victim, the body responds. So it's superb. She did a fine job of really graphically showing what happens, the flashbacks, the trauma memories. It can be startling to someone if they've been abused. So I'm just letting you know that. I'm not going to, again, I don't want to give away anyone or who this happened to. I'm not going to give any of it away. But she did a good job. She did actually more than a superb job of really demonstrating what can happen to someone if this occurs. So not for that reason, but I strongly recommend the Outlander. Again, storytelling, masterful. Now I'll give it an aside. I'm going to watch Bridgerton's coming back. Yay. Anyone who watched Bridgerton, you can't miss season 2. It's coming back, and Netflix lets you binge watch, which is a cool thing, except I never have time to binge watch. But I will start watching it when I get back on the treadmill, which I'll get into in a minute. And I'm hoping by Friday when it comes on that I can start. It is just entertaining. Again, beautiful costumes, the attire they wore during that period. You know, I'm sure it's all embellished, of course, but we need that, don't we? We need fantasy and embellishment. It's fun. It takes us away from real life. That's why I love to read. I adore reading, and I do read nonfiction also. I do read more as I've gotten older, because I like to really get the facts about some things where the facts are hidden. But fiction is my favorite. Oh my goodness. I couldn't survive without reading a good novel. I tell you this because you should watch it. And many of you already have watched Bridgerton. It's a lot of fun. They said the gorgeous Duke, I think he was a Duke, is not coming back this season. Okay, we'll have to do without, but I'm still watching it. Now, I tell you, I haven't been on the treadmill because I go on usually. When I'm seeing clients, I don't have the energy to go on. We're 60, it's not the new 40. But I had a little bit of a mishap, and I'm fine. I'm not going to bear it all, but I'll just say it was something around my breathing. And I'm 64. And even though I'm extremely healthy for my age, I'm a healthy specimen, good genes. I eat healthy other than some sweets. I like my sweet tooth, but I don't eat a lot of red meat, as I've said, or any of that, which is fine. I like red meat. It's not, on a regular basis in my staple of eating. But long story short, after being tested, and I want to give kudos to my healthcare providers, the people that took care of me while they were doing these tests, and my doctor who I saw this morning. I had pleurisy, all of it, everything else was ruled out, and I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for the good care I received. I'm grateful for the care I received. I'm grateful that we have a great health system in the United States. And please, those of you who say it's unfair, listen. If you are poor, yes, it is more difficult to get the primary care physician that you want. I pay a lot of money for my health insurance, and I'm lucky I can do that before I go on Medicare. But no one can be turned away at an emergency room. They must be taken care of. There is a law. No one can be shunned. So everyone, if they have an emergency, a real emergency, they will be taken care of. So that's one thing. Number two, those who argue, why did Mick Jagger come to the United States for his heart surgery? He could have been in Great Britain. Why do people, there was a woman from Canada, I don't know if she was her role, but it was in government. When people questioned her about coming here, she basically snapped back and said, I have the right to go where I want to get taken care of. I think she had metastatic breast cancer. I don't remember. It was a while ago, but Mick Jagger wasn't so long ago. I know the Brits have a two-tiered system. They have their national health care. I think you can also purchase private insurance, I believe. Now, I could be wrong, but I think from everything I've read, I'm not. It may be like that in Canada also. I like having private health insurance. And I hope that we can keep that system alive in this country. I also believe we should be thankful that something is done right around healthcare here, because not just Mick Jagger, people all over the world come here. The Saudis, the Middle Easterns, they all have come here to have their healthcare. Why? They can afford it, first of all, but they come to the United States. So I'm thankful. Finally, I'm going to just mention briefly about the geopolitical scenario happening as we all watch. I have great empathy for the Ukrainian people, the Russian protesters. I'll say two things about the players of Putin. I'll just say he is a sociopath, not psychotic. There is a difference. All these people, oh, I think he's psychotic. No, he's not psychotic. He's quite sound of mind and body. He's a megalomaniac in terms of, maybe he's had some psychotic episodes, but he's methodical. He's watched everything. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's going for the prize. He never got over the Soviet Union being dismantled. He is just, I don't even know what to say about him, but believe me, he is a sociopath versus psychotic. He may have had some psychotic episodes, but remember, Ted Bundy snowed therapists. He was a lawyer. He was quite methodical in what he did too. These sociopaths are walking around. We may have encountered them. I mean, on a lesser level than the world stage, but they're out there. You know, they kind of, there's even therapists that are sociopaths. A friend of mine told me about a psychologist in Danvers, Massachusetts, that was found with child pornography in their apartment. So there you go. Whatever. I feel for the Ukrainians, the Russian protesters. I hope this thing ends soon. The Ukrainians, and by the way, don't call it the Ukraine. That is a real wound for the Ukrainians, because that means it's a part of the Soviet Union. It is not. Ukraine is a separate country. It once was a part of the Soviet Union. It was once very much a part of it. And during the 1930s, when so many intellectuals went over to the Soviet Union thinking Stalin was doing great things and that I think they wanted to bring them here, he wasn't doing such great things. He just showed them what he thought they would want to see. And they did. He fed them, lies. Oh yeah, it looked good, but nobody really knew what was going on behind the scenes. Stalin was, and I've said this before, systematically starving the Ukrainian people. We had a bureau chief of a noted paper, the paper of note, should I say, in the United States, that was there, being wined and dined by Stalin and withholding the truth about what was happening to the Ukrainian people. his paper of note gave him a Pulitzer and never rescinded it. They refused to rescind it. They were like, oh, well, oh, well, 1 million people that died later that maybe we could have helped prevent, at least if the world frowned upon Stalin, but no way. So it took a British man, that Mr. Jones, and I've talked about this before, that was able to expose this atrocity, this horror that was going on right beneath the world's nose. He should have got the Pulitzer. He wasn't a United States, he wasn't an American, but he should have got the Pulitzer in some form, or at least awarded. He was assassinated, I believe. Somebody killed him over, maybe it wasn't assassin. Well, yeah, he was killed by somebody over in the Soviet Union. But Mr. Jones got it out to the world, what was happening. And a lot of us, I don't think I even knew about it. It wasn't taught in history to us. It's a lot of things that history, we were taught more than they are now, but there's a lot of things after reading and studying that I realized were withheld from us. The historian would write it according to their lens and not always the facts that involved. They opined or interjected it. And we know that subliminal messages often are tall tales, or should I say they're embellished. That yes, there may be good things somebody did, but there's also very not good things. So the great ones are not always so great. And the good news is there's a lot of exposure with the internet because of that. If you can find it, you have to look for it. Facts, facts, facts. I also want to mention, besides the Ukrainian people, there's a lot of other people suffering in the world that doesn't get attention. One, the Nigerian Christians are constantly being slaughtered, as well as the Uyghur Muslims and practitioners of Falun Gong. I'm not going to say anything more about that. But sadly, there's so many people that suffer in the world. Those of us that live on a land of freedom, a place where there's not been a war since the Civil War, need to be thankful. So boomers, Gen Xers, I hope that you raise your children or raising your children and your grandchildren to be reminded of the blessings we have, not to be taken for granted, including our healthcare. All right, everyone. I think that's it for now. I am going to say, I think my froze a bit, so don't mind me for those of you who see my video, as again, you can see me on video. I also say, go to my website, but my website really needs to be revised, and I don't know when I'm going to get to that. But you can certainly go to Amazon and get my book, Stop Depriving the World of You, and listen to the lovely narrator. It was not me who narrated it. I was very blessed. I was surprised by my publisher for doing that for me. There are wonderful things that happen in the world. Not so wonderful, but wonderful also. If you are of sound mind and body, be thankful, use your brain, use your heart and soul, and remind yourself that chapters are all there for the taking until the end is the end. My glasses. I'm vain. I don't always keep them on.